This is section 4.6 part 2, where we are going to look at solving a quadratic equation. And this is basically the same type of problem we did in 4.5 when we were solving quadratics. And you wanted to isolate the x squared in this type of problem. And then once you do so, your final step will be to take the square root of the number. And in 4.5, whenever we took the square root of a number, the number was always positive. And in part 1 of this section, we just learned how to take square roots of negative numbers. So guess what? Sometimes now when we're solving quadratic equations, we're going to be taking square roots of negative numbers and then simplifying the root using imaginary numbers. So let's take a look at what happens here in this problem. Right, so we've got 3x squared minus 1 equals negative 16. As I've highlighted, we know we want to isolate this x squared. So I'm going to add over my 1. 1's cancel. And I've still got 3x squared equals negative 15. Again, still trying to isolate the x squared. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And I have x squared equals negative 5. Now I'm going to isolate the x. I need to get rid of the square, and the ideal way to do that is to take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. The square root of x squared is simply x, and x equals plus or minus. And now when we take the square root of negative 5, remember this negative becomes an I, and then the 5 stays under the root. And you need to ask yourself, can you simplify the square root of 5? And in this case, the answer is no. So our final answer is x equals plus or minus I root 5. And that's part 2.